Panama and the United States, less secure, less prosperous, and less sovereign. And as President Donald Trump has pointed out, that situation is not acceptable. We are grateful to President Molino, Minister Abrego, and your teams, along with the Panama Canal Authority, for responding to these threats and safeguarding the canal. President Molino's decision to withdraw from the Belt and Road Initiative reflects his government's clear understanding of China and the threat it poses. I want to be very clear. China did not build this canal. China does not operate this canal. And China will not weaponize this canal. Together with Panama in the lead, we will keep the canal secure and available for all nations through the deterrent power of the strongest, most effective, and most lethal fighting force in the world.
What are you doing home from school?
They sent me home. Measles.
That's either measles or a strange case of red freckles.
You have got a temperature.
They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Never mind.
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
No school for a few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it?
Yeah. If you have to get sick, you sure can't beat the measles.
That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out? Like shots, I mean.
Don't even mention shots. Yuck!
Measles, measles, measles. Well, all the kids have now had the measles.
So have I.
Well, I had them years ago. Looks like the Bradys are finished with the measles.
Hold it. You're not through yet.
Alice, don't tell me you're coming down with the measles.
Oh, I hope so. I'd hate to think I was just learning how to blush at my age.
Hi. Dad says I should go to school.
7 students confirmed with measles, 4 others possible.
How? They had to have been vaccinated.
These moms never vaccinated their kids and lied about it. Vaccines are harmful.
You are endangering the health of every child in this city.
Liv, no, it's turning blue.
Call 911.
This case was tragic and really had nothing, I shouldn't say nothing to do with measles, but she did not die of measles by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, she died of a pneumonia, but it gets worse than that because she didn't really die of the pneumonia. She died of a medical error. And that error was a completely inappropriate antibiotic. It was an insufficient antibiotic. When you admit someone to the hospital for pneumonia, what you need to do is you treat what's called empirically, meaning you put them on antibiotics that you think will cover the most common organism. And that's why this case is absolutely enraging. It's infuriating because she died because she got an inappropriate antibiotic. I mean, this is like medicine 101. You put them on 2 antibiotics to cover all the possibilities. It's a really, it's a grievous error. And it's an error which led to her death. Not only did you have several days delay of decline without the appropriate antibiotic, but then when they realized that they were missing the appropriate antibiotic, it took them, as far as I can tell, 10 hours to administer it. And by that time, she was already on a ventilator, and approximately 24 hours later, actually less than 24 hours later, she died. And she died rather catastrophically. As she was declining, she was in a state of what's called shock, and she needed medicines to maintain her blood pressure. And suddenly her blood pressures crashed and she arrested. And that kind of suddenness in an infection suggests some other cardiac event. And in a child like that, with that amount of inflammation, infection, and disturbances in the bloodstream, I can only surmise that she died of a catastrophic pulmonary embolism. It's disturbing when I review the chart because I'm seeing that she's missing a really critical antibiotic that would have turned her around. I believe that with high confidence. This was an otherwise healthy child, as I understand, who came in with a common pneumonia, and a routine appropriate antibiotic would have, I believe, changed that trajectory from what it unfortunately and tragically became.
General, you have a big announcement, I understand, you want to make tonight. What is it?
Well, first of all, I'm excited to be on your show to do this. It's a great place to do it. I'm announcing that I'm running for U.S. Senate against John Cornyn, who apparently is running again for his 5th term, which would put him there 3 decades. It's definitely time for a change in Texas. We have another great U.S. Senator, Ted Cruz, and it's time we have another great senator that will actually stand up and fight for Republican values, fight for the values of the people of Texas, and also support Donald Trump, in the areas that he's focused on in a very significant way. And that's what I plan on doing. And I hope that people will go to my website and look at what we're doing at kenpaxton.com and obviously contribute as well.
So, David, are the Chinese dumping treasuries, my friend?
Are the Chinese dumping treasuries? You know, it wouldn't surprise me if they were, because interest rates have been just ridiculously volatile. So
yeah,
it's a possibility.
Well, the 10-year went from like 3.8 to like 4.35. I mean, that's a move, dude. Like in a few days, right?
Yeah, it's been a really wild ride. And normally what happens is when the stock market gets volatile, you'll generally see people saying, "Oh my gosh, I need to go buy the safety asset," and that means they're going to be buying bonds. And bond prices normally go up. Right now, bond prices are going down. So it's either you've got somebody that's dumping. I mean, the bottom line is that you have to have selling in order for that to happen. You know, the question is the motivation. You know, are people concerned that we are, going to become like a banana republic and interest rates are going to go to something like 6% or something like that?
I heard that people are looking at German bonds, which I find interesting. But today is April 9th. This is the SCIF. Welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us. I'm L Todd Wood, your host. This is David Cross, our resident financial advisor here at CDM. And this is your mission brief. China raises tariffs, the tariff ante. Will Xi lose power? We're going to dig into that. Secretary of Defense Hegseth's speech in Panama. Michael Yon will be on in the second hour to discuss from in Panama. Financial market volatility. David and I are going to talk about that at length. And the measles, is it real? Meaning the pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it. What's the truth behind that? Dr. Diaz is going to come on and talk about that in the second hour from the Wellness Company. And Paxton runs for the Senate. This has big implications more than just the Senate. And Chris Gleason is going to talk to us in a couple segments about that. But David, let's get back to the markets. What do you see going on overall here?
Right now, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty. Stock markets, markets and investors hate uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And when there's uncertainty in the markets, people sell things. And so that's why you're seeing, the U.S. market has come down. Technology shares have come down. International markets were holding up just fine. And then they came unglued, last week also, because you basically have this Mexican standoff where everybody's like pointing guns at each other. And even this morning, I think that the Chinese said, "Oh yeah, Trump, we see your 54% tariff," or whatever the number is at right now, and we raise you to 84. And it's just kind of stupid right now because the Chinese economy is not in great shape. I mean, they went through an $18 trillion real estate blowout that or depression that happened over there, and people are still recovering from it right now. So can the Chinese, juice the market, by selling our treasuries and injecting money into their economy to stimulate things? That's a possibility. But what people keep forgetting, and maybe what the Chinese are forgetting, is that the money that makes the world go round right now comes from the United States. Yeah, we're the buyer. Our currency is the one that everybody trusts out there. No, there's nobody trading in yuan. There's nobody taking.
Why would you put your money with the Chinese Communist Party? Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, and in all honesty, I mean, the reason why Trump is really pushing these tariffs right now is because, if you look at our balance sheet right now, we kind of look like a banana republic. We're on that road of higher debt, lower income that's coming in, unsustainable amounts of debt. And I think what President Trump is trying to do is he's trying to stop that. It's been going on for over 30 years. And the Chinese economy has grown to $18 trillion in size. It's number 2 only to the United States, but it is completely tethered to us and independent and very dependent upon us. And they're also having, they're having some trade negotiations breaking down with the EU. So they can't turn around and go, hey, Europe's going to save us. So they got to figure things out. And, sometimes Chinese dictators can have, what do you call it? Like personality flaws. Maybe they read a little bit too much of their own propaganda.
Stalin-like megalomania or whatever the word is.
Yeah.
So do you think they'll devalue? I mean, there's going to be short-term tactics, right? Is devaluation one of them to kind of combat this or try to?
For the Chinese or for the U.S. or for?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. Basically for everybody. That's what's been going on. It's the reason why, a silver dollar is now worth like $30 and it used to be $1. It's the reason why the average price of a house in the United States has gone from, I think, $367,000 to $400,000. It's the reason why I looked up like the price of a Cadillac Escalade. Like if you're going to buy a Cadillac Escalade in the United States, like just a baseline model is like $100,000.
Yeah.
Get it with all the bells and whistles, it could be like, $170,000. I'm just like, it's a truck. but it's
a house. That's what it is.
$100,000 truck.
It's a house.
It costs more than my first house, and I'm only 55 years old.
Well, yeah, no kidding. So we export, I think, like 1/5 of what they export to us. So people need to realize, we're going to have some industries that feel some pain that sell to China, but their whole, every time they raise, they're just hurting. They're digging their own grave. Do I see that right?
Yeah, but here's they are, and again, the reason why these tariffs, are being put in place is it's not just about trade with China. Yes, they've been taking advantage of us. They gutted our middle class. And Scott Bessent was speaking, I think it was either earlier this week or last week. Time is like collapsing together for me. And he was saying that, in 2024, more Americans traveled to Europe than at any time, in the history of the United States. All right.
Yeah.
But there were also more people going to food banks, than at any time in history. So you've got this bifurcation, this big separation between there's people that are out there that are doing fairly well where things are not affecting them. And then there's a lot of people that are struggling.
Yeah, struggling a lot. That's very true. So Bessent says that we have 70 countries coming in to renegotiate. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. I think it was 49 or 50 countries, I think, on Sunday night. Last week, Vietnam was the first one that capitulated and said, you know what, we want to play ball. We want to have no tariffs, so that's, I think that's a huge positive. But if I were Bessent and Trump right now, you'd probably have to keep an appointment book of all the people that are saying, hey, we want to work things out, because last night at the ports of entry, they started collecting the tariffs last night.
Yeah, Trump's paying $2 billion a day or something like that.
Yeah, so like I said, it's kind of, unfortunately, it's kind of like a big game of chicken that's going on right now between major countries, and a lot of us as consumers and investors, we're kind of like caught between, in the potential crossfire.
Yeah, a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth in the financial class.
Yeah, but I think what a lot of people are forgetting is the Chinese are pointing a gun at us, and they don't have any bullets in it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that to me is the big difference.
So we're going to dig into more of this. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this break on the SCIF.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, you know, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. You know, we think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, you know, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker's stealing all the applicants.
So a shout out to the Wellness Company. We're going to have Dr. Diaz on in a moment, but check your medical kits. Go to twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, protect your family, and just spend some time on the website. It's a lot of information there. So David, I read this morning that Spain is looking to get closer to China, and I've been talking, and I know that Europe is fighting kind of a new tariff war with China as well, but a lot of these leaders, I think, are in bed with Beijing, you know, Macron, Merz in Germany, some of the others. I mean, I could see them flipping and saying, okay, we're with China now, just to stick us in the back. What do you think?
So before I get to that, I just recently learned what a cold open is.
Oh,
so I did.
So you had no idea what I was doing there in the beginning.
So I need to let the audience know. So again, my name's David Cross. I have a company called U.S. Asset Management. I'm affiliated with a group called Advisory Services Network. None of my comments today are to be construed as investment advice. Markets are volatile. You can lose money. Please get advice from a qualified financial advisor. So I always have to have a disclaimer on there because, you know, God knows the government's always, you know, looking to take a little guy in. So
yeah, I should have given you that opportunity. My bad. I was just trying to throw some humor in there in the beginning, you know.
I get it, and I like the music on there and the graphic. But you know, to your question about, you know, is China potentially manipulating Spain? I think China is potentially manipulating everybody. I think they're the Russia of the 1960s, where they were out, honeypotting as many potential, people as they possibly can. And, politicians are people, they're going to fall for things. And yeah, I mean, there's manipulation that's going on for sure.
Well, let's talk markets. How is the Joe Bag of Donuts on Main Street economy doing, in your opinion? You're out there touching these people every day. I mean, what do you see?
I see people that are concerned right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of it. The other thing I'm starting to hear too is that there's some pullback that's beginning to happen in terms of commitments on building and spending money with businesses until the whole tariff thing is unwound. So hopefully we get this thing done a lot sooner. but people are kind of pulling back a little bit. People a little bit concerned, and it's always said that hardly anybody owns anything in the stock market. I got to tell you, folks, if you're working someplace and they have a retirement account or you have a retirement account, you're participating in the market somehow. So there's a lot of stuff that's been bouncing around, lately, but a lot of times what we tell people is, invest for the long term. Don't make short term decisions, because like even today or yesterday was really kind of strange. The stock market went up, I think, like 2.5–3%, then it came down, like 4% at one point. It was crazy. And as I'm looking today, let's see, the S&P today it was up a little over close to 1%. Now it's up 0.3. So it's not going down. Is now a good time to be buying? We're still being really careful right now. I can't tell you that we're going to go jump in with both feet or anything like that, but we're monitoring things by the moment, and I think that once we get past the tariffs, I think that's going to help relieve some of the uncertainty. And again, I said before, markets hate uncertainty, so when the uncertainty goes away, you may see some levitation after that. It just really depends upon what the final outcome is with how much money is being charged on tariffs.
I think we've kind of found our bottom, unless we get some really bad news, and they're just waiting for some kind of catalyst. China says, I'm making the call to Trump, or, Trump says we've negotiated 20 deals and the tariffs are easing. Something like that is going to happen and the market's going to pop. I just feel like it's sold off. What are we down, like close to 10% or more from the?
Well, you want me to go from the higher? Or do you want me to go from January 1st?
Joe, go from January 1st.
So from January 1st to right now, the S&P is down about 15%.
Oh, wow.
And I think the NASDAQ is down, I want to say like 20%. Let's check that one.
So we're in a bear market, essentially, almost, pretty much.
Yeah, I agree. The NASDAQ is down, like 19%.
Wow. That's bigger than I thought. That's interesting. What about volatility? Do you think it's going to slow down here, or just keep going until we get this tariff resolution done?
If history is any kind of guide, it will slow down. Yesterday, I think we crested over 50 on the volatility index. This morning, it is we got up as high as, yesterday we got a high of 57. The day before, 59.
Is that the VIX?
Now we're at 51.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's talk asset classes. I know you can't give financial advice, but crypto, gold, precious metals, real estate. Where do you think there's value out there right now?
I think there's value in stocks, because what you're buying into is something that is supposed to, if you got a good quality company, it should be producing higher and higher cash flows over time, and growing cash flows leads to growing stock price. So I think that there's probably value there. It's interesting too, because gold and silver both took a beating. I think gold came down from like 3,200 to like 29 and change, and right now it's doing pretty well. I think it is around like 3,050 or so.
Yeah.
Gold futures right now, 3,090 is where we're at right now. Silver really took a walloping. On Wednesday last week, it got up to $35 an ounce, and then then by Monday it was all the way down to 29. Yesterday it got as low as 27 and change, but right now it's coming back up. It's around $30 right now. So silver's more of an industrial metal. So if you think the economy is slowing down, which obviously people must think that's happening, there's going to be less demand for silver. Gold is more of an inflation hedge, and and the world is ending kind of asset that people run into. So that may be why gold is holding up a little bit better.
So gold tends to be stable for a long period of time and then spike, in my view. And are we going through one of those, like, as you said, doomsday spikes here now, people buying to hedge their portfolio?
Listen, we could be. It's all entirely dependent upon, gold prices. To my understanding of economics and doing this for 30 some odd years is that asset prices, including gold, tend to go up over time because governments are printing money.
Yeah.
So the other governments around the world, they're going to have to pick up the slack on money printing. The U.S. has been printing an awful lot to make up for our budget deficit, and I think Trump said, hey, that's not sustainable for us. We can't do that. And I think that's probably going to force other countries to do it. So, gold is, could gold go to $4,000 or $5,000 an ounce? It absolutely could. Could it come back down to $2,000 an ounce? It could. It's really anybody's guess. It just really depends upon, how people feel. And sometimes, manias happen in the market that can push prices way up or way down.
So true. Yeah. So what about real estate? I'm getting a lot of calls from people, family members, others. Should I buy? Should I not? Are rates going to go up? Or rates going to go down? I bought last year. Am I in trouble? What do you think? I mean, there's also this whole municipal bond bubble where they've been, artificially, illegally, criminally raising valuations, appraisals to get the tax revenue up in the municipalities and then levering those bonds. So there may be a bubble there in housing values. What's your thought on the whole real estate sector?
Yeah, so when I talk with my own county and other leaders of other counties like DeKalb County and Gwinnett County around here, whenever I talk with leaders over there, I'm telling them to temper their exuberance with how much money that they're spending, and that they need to either set aside some of that money for a rainy day, or at the very least be prepared. Don't be spending a lot of money on capital projects. Like when you put in a firehouse, it's not just the expense of putting in the firehouse, because then you have the operation and maintenance, going forward, and the personnel, which is way more expensive, in the long run. So I'm telling a lot of those folks that they need to be prepared, potentially for, a pullback of, 10, 15, maybe 20% in revenue that's coming in, because you never know what's going to happen, where if they raise the tax rates too high, you might get a bunch of people that just say, I'm moving to the neighboring county where I can live on a bigger piece of property and have lower taxes. My kids are out of school. I don't need to be paying, property tax, or I don't need to be paying like school taxes. So people change their lifestyles. So that's entirely possible. I just, with governments, a lot of times they bring in a bunch of money, and the way the human brain works is that we think that whatever happened today is going to happen tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, infinity forever. All right. And as soon as I say that, that that's not the way the world works, but it's the way that our brains work, because that's hunters and gatherers. That's what we did. Once you found the water, you figured out that the water was, that's where it's going to be, and I'm not going to move away from the water, or if there was a food source nearby, you would stay near the food. So that's the way our brains work, but there's also in how the world works.
I have some family upstate New York near Syracuse, and they were looking for a house, and they ended up buying one, but they had to buy they walked in and put an offer on when they walked in the house the first time, because the market was so hot. And, this is a really depressed economic area, but you have a lot of people looking for real estate up there. So I found that as kind of a contrarian indicator to the whole, the world's collapsing thing, because, they had to overpay right off the bat. They had to go above offer and do it right away, because they had 10 people behind them trying to get the house. And anyway, just a little anecdote there. David, tell us how people can find you. How do they work with you? Everything. So you're our resident financial advisor here at CDM. So give us the info.
All right. So the easiest place to find me is look on the web, look up David Cross Financial Advisor. I think I'm the only one that's in there. Or you can just go to look up US Asset Management, and our website is us-am.com. So you can find me there. And if you're recording this, you can reach out to me on my number at my desk is 678-894-0697.
Excellent. David, thanks. We'll have you back. Really appreciate your time. We'll be right back on the SCIF.
Thanks.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. he wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine marriage.
Welcome back to the SCIF. So let's check the markets real quick. Still in the green, and we're going to monitor these because we think that that we're going to have a move probably to the upside. There's going to be some kind of announcement soon. It's just my gut feel that Trump is in the White House are going to talk about some negotiations. That they've got 70 companies, and Bessent just said that they're going to go right in and essentially do them all right away. So I'll show you the markets right here. So that announcement is coming. What else can China do to scare the market? There's not much unless they start a war. Speaking of China, there's another situation we want to talk about, which is, will Xi lose power? This is important. You can find this article on cdm.press. And the situation is that Xi is in power. However, his power grip is tenuous because the economy is collapsing. The real estate market is collapsing. We talked about over the last 10 years how they're using multiple different collateral over and over again for different loans. The municipality debt is highly Ponzi schemed. The whole economy is a Ponzi scheme, basically, with the leverage or the blow off valve is the United States, where they just continue to produce and produce and produce, sell it all to the U.S. I mean, I had a Michael Yon, who's coming on the second hour, said he just bought a ladder that was Chinese made. I think he said from Amazon. His friend stepped on it, and the step cracked, and the guy almost broke his leg. First time it was ever used. So you have this just cheap Chinese stuff coming into the U.S. Trump's cutting that off essentially because he's going to make it more expensive, and they won't be able to dump all this underperforming equipment into the U.S. So what happens to Xi? There's going to be a lot of pressure on him, and he could lose power. So this is something we're going to watch. As we said, that they export to us 5 times what we export to them. Yes, certain industries will get hurt, Boeing jets, other things like that. But there is a definite leverage that Trump has, and he's pushing on it. And every time China raises tariffs, I mean, they're just hurting themselves because Trump's going to raise again, and he could do a lot of things. He could send a lot of the Chinese students back home. He could delist Chinese companies from the equity exchanges in New York and elsewhere. A lot of tools Trump still has in the toolkit. Of course, the tools that Xi has is to start a war in Taiwan, which we're also going to watch. And this is why you have Trump forcing ownership in the United States of the Panama Canal. We had an ad from Alp. It's our new sponsor, Tucker Carlson's woke pillow, or the alternative to woke Zen, the American lip pillow. And he's been putting out a lot of really cool ads, but he had an interview, which I cut a quick clip with a gentleman who used to be at Bud Light. I found this really, really interesting on the DEI initiative still at Philip Morris and elsewhere. I'm going to run this real quick.
I'll give you a plug for Alp right now. So if you talk about one of the worst companies that's out there,
America's greatest nicotine pouch,
America's lip pillow. But who is your biggest competitor?
That would be the Zyn Corporation.
Zyn. Do you know who owns Zyn?
I do.
So it's Philip Morris International.
Yep.
They are operationally headquartered in Switzerland. On their website to this day, you go on their website today, they have a massive diversity, equity, inclusion piece that is on their website. They have and I would say it's I'll call it the worst aspects of DEI, which can be quota systems, race-based systems. And on their website today, they say we're going to hire 20% of our people we want to be Asian. Literally on their website, just 20%. They want 40% women. I mean, literally quota systems they have on their website today. But the other piece is that on their website, and this is a company that makes Marlboro cigarettes and Zyn and other things, is so they're like one of their big partners for Pride Month that's coming up is the Stonewall Org. And Stonewall Org is one of these LGBTQ plus organizations, and fine, you can do that, but like they are advocating for biological men to compete against women in sports. But like, this is what's crazy is that like, and I think this is the problem about where we're going is
what does that have to keep that out of my mouth? I mean, this is like a.
So get the Alp Pouch. Support us. Support Tucker. Alppouch.com. Make sure you put the /CDM on there. If you're a Zyn user, they're completely woke, as that ad just showed you. So support us and support free media and support Tucker Carlson and and don't buy from the woke companies. We talked about our freedom and control list we have on CDM.press. Down in the bottom menu, you can see all the companies we have listed. Do they want to control you? Do they want to bring you freedom? Another issue which we have discussed at length is the Ukraine war. And I just want to, we put out an article yesterday. I'll bring this up on the former Ukrainian general posting images of the U.S. command and control cell in Wiesbaden, Germany. You can see there, what a picture. I mean, if there's ever an image that captures the woke fighting generals, that's them. They're in the cell in Wiesbaden running the war in Ukraine. I mean, down to the point, and this was in a New York Times article which came out, and all this was posted by former Ukrainian head of the armed forces, Zaluzhny, who's now in the UK working for MI6. But he posted this in another picture, which I'll show you. Also, General Cavoli, who we talked about, the guy in the glasses looking down at the paper on the table with Zaluzhny, that is General Cavoli. He's the head of the European American Armed Forces in Europe and Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in Europe. And he was literally running the war from Wiesbaden, Germany, on the Ukrainian front, to the point where we are told that there are American generals on audio screaming at soldiers on the ground via, links to their helmets to keep running through that trench, etc. So fascinating stuff going on and really disturbing because they've lied to you for years now. And we're going to just continue to harp this because it's really bad for honor for the American armed forces, for the generals, etc. And it's just not cool. So we're going to continue to harp on this story. Also, I want to highlight, go to armedforces.press, top left. You see the AFP gear. Go to the store, all kind of cool gear there. You can work out in style in the gym, and we will make sure you look good. So check out the Armed Forces Press gear. And we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to be back with Chris Gleason, who's going to come on and talk about Ken Paxton and his run for the U.S. Senate. But it's bigger than that. There's more there that you need to know about, and we're going to go into it with Chris.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this. You take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big, proud American Eagle logo.
We're slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. You know, we were talking with David Cross about selling bonds. I was on the bond desk at multiple different firms, emerging markets primarily, but we would have companies or countries come to us and say, I want to float 100 million bonds. And we would go into the market and there'd be no buyers, or the interest rates would be too high and they'd be shut out of the market because they just couldn't afford to borrow this money at those levels. And so this was, almost 15 years ago. And I saw that the United States was heading down that path. And at some point, the bond market would realize globally that we didn't have the will or the ability to pay back our debt. I think we're there. The 10-year bond, which is the metric for all loans, everything in the U.S., went from 3.8 at the low interest rate as the people were buying treasuries to come in and buying safety essentially, and it popped up. I think it's close to 4.4 right now. Really huge move, and that means somebody's selling. Either people are selling to cover margin calls, or China is dumping, or other nations are dumping, or both. So I wrote a book about this. It's called Currency. You can go to historyofbooks.com, or you can go to ltoddwood.com. If you go to History of Books, it's in their fiction area in Vindicta, which is our joint venture. But historyofbooks.com. And this is a historical fiction novel, but it's faction. It's historical fiction from the birthplace of America, but also what is going on today is extremely prescient. People tell me that they feel like they got a degree in finance by reading it, but it's a novel you just can't put down. Some of the comments I get are that feeling of not just wanting to stop reading, or the other comment I get is I stayed up all night to read it and it should be a movie. So go to historyofbooks.com. The rest of the series is being republished by History of Books in the next few weeks to months. There are 3 other novels in the queue, and we're writing a 5th. So I had a lot of success selling this books. We're relaunching them, and please check it out if you're looking for something to give to somebody, for that person who has everything. So please check it out. I'm going to bring Chris Gleason in now. My friend, how are you doing? Good to see you.
It's another day, another day in paradise.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to have you on this morning because late last night I saw a clip. Ken Paxton is running for Senate, and there's more to this because we wanted him as Attorney General. So what's going on here?
Well, I guess a deal's been made that he's going to be the next senator for Texas, hopefully. I think America really needed a good AG, but I guess there's a different plan for him. I don't always get what I want. And
no kidding.
No kidding. Yeah. But, I think from the standpoint as a former candidate, right? Mm-hmm. Ken Paxton will be uniquely positioned to take down a mess in the midterm, because a lot of the things that are endemic of our election dysfunction, the electoral dysfunction that we have here in America.
Yeah.
He'll be able to, as a candidate, right? He'll have standing. And essentially that's why, I had run so that I could have standing. And we've exposed quite a bit here And I believe that the same will be true in Texas for Ken Paxton. And
so you're saying this could be an 8D chess move to get him in to challenge an election or something, possibly.
It could be, or
or they just don't want Ken Paxton to be the Attorney General and actually really look at this stuff. One of the two, right?
One of the two. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We're doing the best that we can, and we have to, being a veteran, you yourself know, you have to play the cards that you're dealt, and you have to adapt and overcome to a very dynamic battlefield. And that's,
they used to teach me in flight school, maintain control of the aircraft, analyze the situation, take the proper action.
Yeah. I mean, I believe it was Mike Tyson that had the saying, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And
so I know you have a lot of pull with Ken Paxton, so we need to get him on the show, first of all. But being punched in the face, you got punched in the face many times in the courtroom because you had really good cases and the judges just kind of punched you in the face and said, sorry, we don't, a lot of judicial corruption. Is Florida becoming California in your view? Are we moving to where it's just, one party rule, not even a party, oligarch rule, and the little man doesn't matter?
Yeah. I mean, we have a kleptocracy here in Florida, and it's a uniparty kleptocracy for sure. It's irrefutable at this point. I mean, the stuff that we have uncovered, and there'll be more coming out very, very shortly. We're preparing some stuff that's taking a little bit longer, but we have to be 100% sure of what we're doing, because this is true. The stuff that we're going to be exposing and alleging in this next series of filings is truly earth-shattering, and we have to be right. And that was kind of the thing with Ken Paxton in Texas. They wanted to be right. They wanted to be 100% sure. And, I mean, we were able at the end of the day, right, with all of the Smurf stuff that we had uncovered in Texas, it was ultimately so compelling to Ken Paxton that he made a criminal referral to the DOJ over this.
Yeah.
I mean, none of my work has been disputed yet. None of it has been debunked. The Smurf stuff, the blank ballot stuff, and I'm pretty 100% positive, 100% of the time on this particular issue.
I know you are.
So you can pretty much take to the bank what we're about to drop, and any reasonably intelligent, reasonably intellectually honest person will agree with this. So, Ken Paxton, he's got a fight in store for him, because he is he is actually going up against the Republican uniparty machine, right? So he'll have standing to go against the RNSC establishment, which was controlled by, Glitch McConnell.
Yeah.
And
Cocaine Mitch.
Yeah, Cocaine Mitch. And ambiguously gay Lindsey Graham. So, these people.
I still love that meme that came out. The guy that was caught having gay sex in the conference room, and he's like naked in the shower from his Instagram. Like, I'm waiting on Lindsey Graham.
These memes, they write themselves, right?
Well, this wasn't a meme. It was like from his.
I know. I know. Yeah,
they do write themselves.
We're living a meme right now. This is 69D meme warfare. So,
well, they work. They're pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So you're putting together a legal drop, is what you're saying?
Yeah, we're doing a legal drop. It should. It's going to shake things up here in Florida, and it should shake things up nationwide, because this is something that we've seen nationwide. The way that the election corruption cartel has been operating on a nationwide basis, it's not just here in Florida. It's gone on in Maryland. I mean, everywhere. And so, Texas, in Texas, Ken Paxton was an amazing ally for us because we were able to get our hands on some stuff that, we weren't able to do here in the free state of Florida, or in Maryland or in other places. And, these little pieces, these little wins that we get here and there, it creates an intelligence mosaic for us of what all is out there. And, these aren't custom coded software packages, right? It's the same thing. And so what's true in Texas is true in Florida. And, we just have corrupt judges ruling contrary to the rule of law, refusing to disqualify themselves. I mean, it's.
I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, but Justice Thomas came out and said, I'm ready to impeach some judges. Did you see that?
I saw a meme. I saw a meme on that yesterday. And, is it true or not? I hope so. I also remember back in the day, going into the 2020 election, Justice Thomas also called for a pivotal Section 230 case, which I was involved with early on-ish, tied to my friend Jason Fick. And Jason had asked me to be a co-plaintiff, and I explained to him no, because the next time I paid for legal fees, it was going to be for my own law degree.
Yeah.
But, as luck would have it, I didn't pay for a law degree and I don't have a bar card, so I can do the things that I'm doing now. But Justice Thomas back then called for a case to be brought about internet censorship, right? And when this case went before the United States Supreme Court, they refused to hear the case. And that just so happened to be up for debate before the Supreme Court during the week that they were talking about deplatforming a sitting United States president. So, does this rot go all the way to the fish's head at the United States Supreme Court? We're probably going to find out.
It's quite possible. I mean, the body language of Amy Coney Barrett at the recent president's speech showed a lot, which is, really disturbing. But I guess we shouldn't be that surprised that she's probably compromised, or at least, has not maybe they're just scared, or, going along with the dark side. I don't know, but it is disturbing.
Well, we can do what we can do, and we're fighting the good fight. My job is in the efforts department.
Exactly.
God's job is in the results department, and the rest, I just keep fighting. So, I get punched in the face and I get back up and I get back at it. Luckily, right, it's not there's not a 3 knockdown rule. So
yeah, I've learned a lot from you in that department, actually. So I'm writing an article now. We've got a situation where the Trump tariffs are coming in. You've got Congress looking to try to stop it. I think I saw a dozen House members were going to vote to stop his tariff authority. I mean, Congress is going to be a big deal. And Trump, Trump to threat, I don't think it's China. It's internal with election fraud and him losing. He won't lose his mandate, but he could lose power in 26.
He already lost power, Todd. He already lost power because unfortunately for him, he hasn't purged quite the way he needs to. I mean, I had two FOIAs going on, one with the EAC and one with the FEC. And they have pretty much told me to pound sand at this point. And this is even after the EO. So, if the FOIA officer, Seton Parsons at the EAC, is telling me to pound sand, for data that they have, and they're lying and they're concealing, that's a problem, right? the fact that the FEC is also using shady tech games to conceal federal election records, and then claim falsely that, oh, well, you can get it here. That's just not true. It's not accurate. And, we still got Elvis Chan, right? In San Francisco. And we have the new clown who probably has me on the top of his list as a domestic terrorist because, I stand against, the real tyranny, right? So
which clown would that be? Cash Patel, or who are you talking about?
Oh, cash.
Well, I think I got this meme from you. The Gulf of no one's been arrested yet.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, we hear a lot about, we're going to get the death penalty for the guy who killed the healthcare executive. We're going to deport, which we're not deporting as much. We're going to do all this, but no one's been arrested yet. And everybody's saying, just wait, it's coming. I think Bongino said that recently, but what say you?
Well, I mean, look at who they just appointed to be the head of the FBI in DC. I mean, they put a guy who, spearheaded the whole weaponization of government against disgruntled parents who didn't want their kids to see kiddie porn in school board meetings.
Really? I didn't see that. What was his name? Or you may not know.
Jensen.
Okay.
There was a big hullabaloo over that over the weekend. And, we come to find out that he was named to be the head of the DC FBI branch. I mean, there was a post about it, and I chimed in and I said, if they really wanted change, they'd put me in charge of that office. And Roger Stone piped in, and he's like, "You are 100% correct, and you would be perfect for that job, and you would do a lot better job than anybody that's in the current employ of the FBI." So, I mean, if Roger Stone knows that, I mean, he was a victim of government weaponization, right?
Sure he was, yeah.
I mean, until we're seeing people from the FBI and intelligence community having pre-dawn raids at their homes, right? Or them being perp walked out of government buildings wearing stainless steel bracelets. This is all KFAB, and that's unfortunate because that's not what America voted for. That's not what America wants. And, unfortunately, because of the election corruption machine that the EAC is hiding and the FEC is hiding the financing of, right? The American people don't know the real extent by which that mandate that Donald Trump has, because, the data is what the data is. And, we all know that President Trump has a big ego, and I'm sure that he would really like to see, and go down in history as the guy who won by a 90% or 80% margin, because it wasn't close, not by not for a minute.
And all the down ballot races were taken.
All the down ballot races were stolen, and that none of that's been fixed, right?
That's my point. I mean, who's talking about election integrity? I don't see anybody. I mean, we had the EO, which was good. It's a good step.
But if the EAC and the FEC are still not complying with it, what good is it? I mean, you can make an order, but what happens when these people are still behind the levers of power?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, there's a ton of J6ers that this Jensen guy, he called them terror. He was calling them terrorists. He was spearheading the prosecution and rounding up of these people. That's not good. And I mean, I know that a lot of the J6 people, they're mad, and they should be rightly, right? I mean, I think all of America is.
Well, that's why free media is so important. So if people are out there, sign up for our social media, CDM1 on Rumble, go to YouTube, subscribe to us there, X account, find us and subscribe and follow us, because it's really important to grow our footprint, because Well,
Chris,
this
is the only place that you're going to get the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason why we get throttled, right, is because we're telling the truth.
Sure.
I mean, if it's funny, right? If people understood or looked at the stories that CDM has put out, over the past few years, I mean, just the other day there was one, right? You guys posted it in 2020, and now and now it's coming out like it's breaking news.
Yeah, that was I was literally going through Hunter's laptop right after it dropped, and I did a search on Ukraine, and all these emails popped up, and one of them was Hunter and Biden using the American ambassador in Italy to close a private business deal for them, and just complete influence peddling. And we published it in October 2020. And the New York Times just came out with it last week and said, "Oh yeah, guess what Hunter was doing 5 years later."
So we're here at the tip of the spear, buddy.
We are, man. We so are. Chris, what else? Anything else you want to get out to the American public or the world?
Yeah, there is. So Jeff Bongino in President Trump's backyard, Palm Beach County, he's been fighting. We're in constant communication, and he's doing great stuff over there. And he's trying to establish and show the fact that the election in President Trump's backyard was also stolen. And the crooked attorney in his case against him paid for, despite the fact that there was fraud involved. Taxpayer dollars are going to defend this fraud, the stealing of our elections. Well, he dropped a bombshell last week in court, and it was a fraud upon the court. He lied. He specifically lied about the verification of ballots and being sent out. We had this thing called the no-no ballots, where they were not verified for ID, contrary to the law. And it happened in a very large percentage of ballots over there, happened in a massive here. And this new revelation that they had been withholding from all of us statewide got dropped by the attorney. And so he's moved to sanction the attorney. He's moved to disqualify the attorney, because now the attorney has become a material witness to the facts of the case.
Wow.
And this is a huge, huge, huge problem.
We'll have to get him on the show soon. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So there's, if the judge in his case is really interested, because what they've done is they've shut us all out of discovery, because they're concealing the fraud.
Yeah.
And so that's the really big issue here. And we're trying to fix that. And Bongi's case, Jeff Bongino versus Wendy Link, it's a pivotal election integrity case.
Excellent. Well, I know him well. I will reach out to him today. Maybe we'll have him on tomorrow or Friday to talk about it. Fantastic, Chris. Thank you. We're going to have Michael Yon on. We're waiting him to come on right after this from Panama. And then we have Dr. Diaz from the Wellness Company to talk about measles. Chris, we'll have you back soon. Thank you very much, my friend, for coming on late notice with the Paxton announcement. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP. Someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have a former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era.
I should say, alppouch.com. For sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches. The American Lip Pillow on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We got a packed second hour. Michael Yon is coming on from Panama to talk about Secretary of Defense Hegseth's speech yesterday, the Chinese bridges that are being built. Will they collapse? Will they not? The Darien Gap, all of that. We're going to get an update from Michael. So be patient with us. He's telling me he's coming, and we're just not sure exactly when. So we're going to go into some other areas, and when he comes on, we'll bring him on. We also have Dr. Alejandro Diaz from the Wellness Company. There's a lot about measles you may not know. And for instance, what if your child gets it? What are the symptoms to look for? When should you take him to the doctor? When is there a problem? And we're going to talk about measles some more here, actually, right now. This is Secretary Kennedy and his comments on, let me just bring him up, on measles. He said he came to Gaines County, Texas. This was on April 6th to confront the family after hearing the loss, to comfort the family after hearing the loss of their 8-year-old daughter. Blah, blah, blah. Here to support Texas health officials. In early March, we deployed a CDC team to bolster state and local capacity for response. But the kicker in this text is down there at the bottom. It says the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is the MMR vaccine. This is extremely interesting and disturbing to me because Kennedy has spent the last 20 years with Children's Health Defense talking about the dangers of the MMR vaccine. And if you go to Children's Health Defense and just search for, make that a little bigger. If you search for MMR, you'll get all these articles on the dangers of MMR vaccines. For instance, this one, no proof MMR vaccine is safer than measles, mumps, or rubella infection, physicians group says. So, what's going on here? This is a real disturbing pattern that we're seeing with officials getting into government and then changing their tune after saying one thing and then now doing another. And here's another one. New Danish MMR study shows autism rate of 1 in 100. 1 in 100. And the CDC should rush to Denmark. So they have been at Children's Health Defense talking about these vaccines for some time and the dangers of them. And so what's going on with Kennedy? I mean, that's really, really disturbing. I know him, and but we're not going to pull punches when we see things that are strange in the government and see behavior that we don't like. So that is really disturbing. We're still waiting on Michael Yon. We were talking earlier about the Ukrainian conflict and the C2 command and control cell found in Wiesbaden, outed by the New York Times because of a limited hangout, because I think the real truth is much worse, that the U.S. was running that war. But we talked also about the General Zaluzhny in Ukraine, the former commander who's now working for the UK, working for MI6, essentially, we think, talking about how the U.S. was there. He provided pictures, and we showed those earlier. But we also interviewed the other day Pete Blaber, who's a former Delta Force commander, good friend of mine, and Pete really had some good insight on the Ukraine war, as he always does. There's a multiple really long pieces on armedforces.press on that conflict that Pete has written. If you really want to get knowledgeable in the war, go there. We're going to start this interview. If Mike, or not start it, we're going to play a little bit of this discussion with Pete on because I want to keep pushing this Ukraine war. It has to end. We're going to stay on it on this show. It's one of our main points. I'm speaking all over the country. We have a Ukraine war tour on cdm.press, the top right. We're talking about this conflict, and we're going to continue to talk about it. I'm going to play some of this with Pete. When we get Michael Yon on, we will bring him in. But right now, we're going to go to this. Hold on. We'll be right there. Here we go.
And it was not me who said it. It was probably the most revered trainer of the Ukrainian army in the early days, a retired Brit officer, who said the most difficult thing for outside observers to understand about Ukraine is everything they see and hear is an illusion, a complex illusion created by the government and military officials in order to delude the people of Ukraine, the Ukrainian military, and even the Russian military themselves that reforms are underway and that this military is competent and ready to fight. And if you recall all those things about the ace, the fighter ace, the Ukrainian ace.
Oh, yeah. What did they call it? The Ghost of Kiev or something like that?
Yeah. And then, of course, Doge uncovered that USAID bought and paid every single media outlet in Ukraine. And, of course, Zelensky clamped down even tighter on that. He controls every one of them. So, you know, one of the frustrations is the people of Ukraine have no voice, and the soldiers have no voice. And, you know, as I've told you on past shows you've had me on, I write those papers as a veteran, as an American veteran. And, you know, the veteran is the international part. Both Ukraine and Russia are losing, you know, their most valuable resource right now, which is their patriots.
Yeah,
and,
a whole generation of people in Ukraine.
Yeah, and if there was a great reason for that, it'd be one thing, but it's not. The war is built on a massive propaganda lie about how it started, and then a series of related smaller lies to cover it up over the years. And
well, that's a really good point, Pete, because people need to realize, you know, if our country was being invaded, if which it is in the southern border or was, if we had, you know, Russian subs, you know, threatening to launch missiles from Cuba or whatever, that would be something to fight for, like your family, your country, your house, but not a manufactured conflict across the world, which has no impact on our national security whatsoever. I mean, that's the big lie, right?
Yeah, yeah, great summary. It's and you know, you see it. I put these articles out, and I get 90% fantastic, positive feedback. Thank you for saying this. Thank you for, you know, putting it out there. Obviously, I get you know, a 10% of people. Most of them are working over there or have some kind of contract.
You know, the people I get grief from the guys who are like, well, I got the cluster munitions to Ukraine. You know, I did a good thing.
Right. No, that's exactly what it is. And, you know, the first thing I tell all of them, first off, I approach all of them like I approach a wounded animal, because I know they're wounded, their ego. When you read suddenly that everything you've been doing is, you know, based on a mirage and is not true, it's tough to take. And so the first thing I send out all these guys is that Carl Sagan quote, which is so relevant for our times, not just for Ukraine, but the pandemic and everything else. And that's this: when we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. The bamboozle has captured us, and we have no interest in learning or finding out the truth, despite evidence that shows us to the contrary. It's just too painful, even for ourselves, to admit that we've been taken. And that's
exactly it, because their whole view of the world and their whole reason for being collapses, and some human psyches just can't take that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the propaganda, Todd. And the other very complex thing about Ukraine is, you had a great article the other day, just yesterday or day before, on Kaboli and his Senate testimony. which I watched again last night to prep for this. I watched the whole thing. And he's a perfect example. You know, he, again, every time we see someone coming out against peace, it's one of the, as I described last time, it's one of the arsonists who hung around to watch the fire. And now our media is interviewing him, in this case, the Congress, and saying, hey, what happened? And so, you know, in the New York Times article, that's the basis of what you can see.
Let me just scroll through this real quick. So our audience, this is on armedforces.press. This is the recent one you put out, part 2. Dear President Trump, it's time to pull all U.S. personnel out of Ukraine. It's an extensive article, very in-depth and insightful with a lot of points. And you can go see all the stuff Pete has put out on Ukraine, really in-depth researched articles, which are, if you want to know what's going on, go to that page and read everything he's done. But if you go to, this is the article you're talking about, which is the hearing, General Cavoli, who, you know, the other general was mainly focused on Africa, and we'll talk about that with USAID because he's AFRICOM commander. But the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe and the head of U.S. forces in Europe was essentially lying to Congress, or lie by omission. You know, we learned at the Air Force Academy, quibbling is a thing when you don't tell the whole truth. I mean, so what do you, I mean, that's what he was doing, right?
I watched it, like I said, again last night in totality. And first off, it's ghosts of General Westmoreland, then more recent ghost of General Miley. It's a guy sitting in front of Congress saying everything's okay when the thing he's talking about is on the verge of collapse. I mean, literally, the Ukrainian army could collapse any day now with a breakthrough. And that's how dire the situation is. But he's not saying that. He's actually, like you perfectly described, omission of truth. He's quibbling, using all these, you know, offset phrases to describe the situation. And he basically, what you're left with is, hey, Ukrainians can do this. We need to stay at it, which is incredible because it's counter to what his commander, the commander-in-chief, is trying to accomplish right now, which is peace, is to put it to an end, to put the bloodshed to an end. It doesn't make sense. We need to.
We are back. I'm going to end that, and we're going to bring on Michael Yon, ton of target of opportunity here. So we'll get back to Pete's interview at another point. But here's Michael. Sir, thank you for giving us a little time today.
Oh, thank you. I hope I'm lined up right in the camera. And
you're good, man. You're
so
good. So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Hegseth was down there. What was the response of the speech, and what are you seeing on the ground? I know you're really in the thick of things down there.
Yeah, he gave a speech yesterday on the canal, actually right next to the China Bridge. So if you see the bridge in the background, that's not the China Bridge. That's the Pan American Highway. That's the Thatcher Ferry Bridge, which is a bridge that was built by the United States in 1962. But about halfway between where Pete Hegseth gave a speech and that bridge that you see in the video is the China Bridge. And then on the other side of the canal from where he gave the speech is one of the ports that that BlackRock is trying to buy, but that China has blocked, right? So that's here they call it Balboa Port, but Hutchison, Whampoa, you know, Hutchison owns it, right? Or not owns it. They have a concession. And also another port on the other side of the canal. Those two ports are key because they're actually connected by a railway, which the Danish company Maersk just suddenly bought. They bought suddenly, let's say. And but you got to keep in mind that railway is not just any railway. It opened in 1855, and actually when the canal was made, they had to close the original railway because the original railway, a lot of it's now underwater in the canal, right?
Yeah.
And so, so now the original railway was very important in building the canal, and then they, you know, also built this new railway. But this new railway connects those two ports, so that's extremely important because the new railway, or it's not new, it's been around a long time itself, but you know, let's say the new railway that opened in more than 100 years ago.
Mhm.
But it connects those two ports at either end of the canal. And so it allows ships to come and sort of use it as a mail system, you might say. They can drop
Mhm.
off a bunch of containers, pick up a bunch of containers, and they don't have to transit the canal, right? So it's very valuable in that regard. It allows you to come in, drop off, pick up, and keep going up the coast or wherever you're going. And so whoever owns that railway, if you're looking at monopoly, that's a nice railway to own. Now, what I'm told was that BlackRock, if their deal had gone through and maybe it'll go through, I tend to doubt it at this point, but
Mhm.
who knows?
Yeah.
But they wanted to do business, I'm told, with MSC, which is the Mediterranean Shipping Company. And the Mediterranean Shipping Company, which is a huge company, just like Maersk, they're both huge. Maersk is the big boy in the canal, though, right? You
Mhm.
see their containers everywhere, but if BlackRock got those two ports at the end of each end of the canal, the Atlantic and the Pacific, they were going to do business, I'm told, with MSC as the train company, right? And so that would so Maersk wanted to, basically defend their own business and just get the railway, which they've done. Interestingly, if you look on my Substack, Misako Ganaha and I went up in that train maybe a year or so ago, and they actually let Misako get on top of the train and put a camera on top. So we made video going all the way across the canal one way and back.
Cool.
And Misako and I, we rode in the engineer car, right? So the whole trip. In fact, when you go over to the Atlantic side, they parked the train and we had to go down the long steps because it's pretty high up, actually. And then the train started up and drove past us the length of the train, and then we got up in the other car and drove the opposite direction. So the train didn't turn around; it's just got engines on each side of the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's real reporting, man.
yeah, we and then Misako, like a couple months ago, she actually opened one of the locks in the canal, Agua Claras locks. She published that video on my Substack as well. Interestingly, too, a few months ago, we were down in Argentina and we were looking at the bioceanic corridor that the Chinese want to build between Brazil and it goes through Argentina and will end up in the Pacific at Chile. And we went up. The Chinese have an electric sort of maybe a demonstration train, let's say.
Mhm.
I say electric because they say it runs by solar power and they have some big solar power panel farm or whatever. I don't know if it's legit, but they do have a solar panel farm and they do have the electric train because we rode on it. And when we were on that train in Argentina, they asked Misako if she wanted to ride in the engineer car. So I got to go in there with her. There's this thing, Japanese privilege. It's quite real. It's like, we come to the train in Panama. She's on top of the train. We're riding in the front. She's opening the Agua Claras locks, and we go to Argentina, and she's in the front of the train again. So we get to see a lot of stuff. And
No, I know you do. That's why I like having you on. So let me ask you, was BlackRock buying those companies actually a positive or not? Because, they've been way out in front of the whole globalist thing, which, is kind of tied to what China's doing, the whole ESG and all that Marxist crap. So is it good or bad that they didn't get to buy those companies? What's your feel?
Well, that's turning my volume up. A lot of my friends down here in Panama, they want the Chinese out. But then when they saw BlackRock getting it, they're like, whoa, they asked the question that you just asked, which was the first question I asked myself. Wait a minute. These are jab pushers. They're total DEI people. They want the invasions of the United States to continue. China was jab pushers. They want us to have DEI, that they don't have it.
Yeah.
And they want the invasions of the United States to continue as well. Which one is the most dangerous for us? Probably BlackRock, because BlackRock does meetings with Trump all the time. BlackRock, you know what I mean? BlackRock is, in the hotel I'm at now, Hegseth is staying here, right? And the guys with the ear things are all over the place, right?
Yeah,
At breakfast, all around me, the ear things, this is it. And so Hegseth just got back from a meeting with Netanyahu 2 days ago. He was in Washington, right? Then he flew in here and gave a speech, and now he's giving other talks today. And so Hegseth is if we have a war with Iran, which is looking pretty probable,
Yeah.
he was, signaling about the attacks on the Houthis or whatever. I mean, this is, this is not in the interest of the United States to go to war with Iran, period.
I
Full
agree
stop.
completely.
Anybody who says that it's in our interest to go to war with Iran is either a Zionist or really, really stupid. I mean, it's not in our interest to go to war with Iran. It's just
well, you mentioned you have Laura Logan coming down. I know her well, and I met her through the MEK, which is the Iranian resistance. The way to take down Iran.
You met the MEK? I was out with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Iraq.
Yeah, they were in Iraq. Yeah, that's where before they were moved to Albania. But my point is,
moved them to Albania.
Yeah, I was the first journalist in their camp in Albania, but I wrote a book about it, actually. In fact, I'll bring that up now just so people can see it.
Book?
Hold on, I'll get it. I'll send you a copy, or when I come down, I'll bring you a copy.
I wish I would have read that before I met them, but I met them in about 2005 or 6, and they were in that camp. And what was the name of that camp? And they're run by women, aren't they?
They are run by women. Hold on, I'll just bring this up 1 second.
So that must blow people's mind. An Islamic terror group ran by women.
Well, that's why they don't. That's why they don't want it.
What's that?
That's why they don't want the MEK in power. The book is called "Paying the Price: The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance." I'll bring you a copy when I come down. But I just wanted to throw that up there. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, Laura knows. She's well informed on them as well. What else? I know you don't have a lot of time. What else do you want to get out to the world here?
Yeah, Lara's coming down, and I'm going to take her all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she's not been to Panama before, and it's very important to get her big mind down here. You know how she is.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a rare bird. She has really seen a lot of this world, and I can't wait to show it to her and see how this, how it comes out in the calculations of her experiences. And so I'll be seeing her tonight, or actually in about 6 hours. Yeah.
Excellent. So what do you see? How does this play out with the canal? Last question. How does it play out? We're going to bring more military infrastructure down there and try to prevent any kind of closure of the canal, because that's what China could do, right?
Well, China doesn't really want to close the canal. If we go to war, of course they want to close it. But
that's what I meant, obviously, yeah.
But I'm not sure that we could really stop China from closing it because this isn't World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And the Japanese, they had a fair shot at closing it then, and they were going for it. Actually, they even developed a submarine to do it called the I-400.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, not to go into that, but closing the canal is child's play with modern technology, right?
Yeah.
And it's really undefended. I mean, I'm out there at the canal all the time, and I'm on the water in it. I'm flying around it. I'm going through boats through the locks and all that stuff, and tourists can come right up on it. So, I'm not saying that it should be all locked down like our airports, but at the same time, I don't, the major threat from China is not that they'll close the canal, which they could do, obviously, but they don't need to have the bridge and all that to do it. The number 1, 2, and 3 customers in this order are United States, China, and then Japan.
Mm-hmm.
China wants to control the canal. They want to control Panama. They want to control all of Central America and South America and the Americas, from Canada down to the tippity toe there of South America, Tierra del Fuego, right? They want, and so, and they're working on it. It's not just a pipe dream. They're sort of like in the gym every day, let's say, and they're making progress. So they don't. The only way I would see China closing the canal would be if we get into a war with them, like Taiwan or something like that, and it's worth the damage. Like China says, well, it's worth damage to us because we're going to do a lot more damage to the United States, right? So, and they would do more damage to us than to them. But if they just control the canal, then that puts them in a position to control a lot of the things that we do, and certainly extort from Japan and everybody else that goes through the canal, right? So anybody that says a bad word about China or doesn't come on and say the words the speech that we told you to read on your microphone, they can say, well, your ships can't go through. How you like that, And so we can't let China take this canal. We can't. But China, they have a long game, and they're doing this, and they're hitting this in many different mechanisms. One is demographics. I mean, they're slowly coming in and moving in. Chinese have been here for 170 years. But that's a different set of Chinese, right? But this, the Chinese Communist Party also has got their tendrils into that one, and they want to, and I see it in Honduras and Guatemala, all over the place. They are working very hard to both fill up the bathtub with their mainland people, just like they're doing in Canada and the United States and so many other places. But they're also the people that have been there for generations. They're trying to recruit them, and in some levels they've succeeded, and others they haven't. That's why they have these police stations all over the place. Like Masako found one in Ireland, and we went to it in Dublin.
There was one in New York. They shut down.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. And so those police stations, one of the reasons that they're there, first of all, they're run by MSS and United Workers Front. MSS is their CIA, the Ministry of State Security, right? So it's straight up. Like, we went to one in Dublin, we went to one in London, the one in London was pretty hidden, but Masako found it somehow. And then we went to one in Toronto, no, not Toronto, Vancouver. And it's interesting because the main reason for those police stations, in addition to spying, is to police up dissidents, because when China has had problems, often it's been, let's say, sponsored and financed by Chinese that are overseas,
right?
Which is normal. I mean, when people are running operations against other countries, they often do it with the diaspora, right?
Right.
They'll use the diaspora and the diaspora's money, and like, we want to be in charge again. And that doesn't matter if it's Poland or China or wherever, Vietnam. They'll use the diaspora to fight Iraq, and I mean,
right,
one after another. And they do it to us, we do it to them, that sort of thing. And China's doing it to us now.
Well, Michael, thank you very much. I know you don't have a lot of time. I really appreciate you carving out a little bit for us, and we'll come back. And you got something else you want to say, or?
No, but thank you for having me on, and thank you for the flexibility. It's been a busy day, and we're about to head down to Darien, so we're in the middle of all that.
See you soon, my friend. Thanks again. Take care.
Todd.
We'll be right back. The bird flu is circulating. We're getting more and more press, more fear mongering, more warnings about this. First, let's start with that. What say you on?
Well, what I say is it specifically is not circulating. It's in animals. There's one human, maybe two transmissions, no human-to-human transmission. And stand by, everybody. If there is some sort of sudden human-to-human transmission, you should immediately be suspicious that gain of function was involved with that. Just the fact that they're taking an animal virus and going nuts on it in the press and talking about it all the time, that to me leads me to believe that they have concerns that somebody is doing something with that virus, because this would not happen naturally, in my opinion.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
Welcome back to the SCIF. We're getting a lot of good feedback on Nucleo Boost. We use it every day here at CDM. It really is the building blocks that your body needs and fills in the potholes. So when a disease comes along, you're ready to go and your body can handle it. You can go to cdmnutrition.com for our audio audience and check it out. Check out the subscription. It's much cheaper. But for us, it's the stamina. I keep going, and our team is going. And this just keeps us right in the game. So check out cdmnutrition.com and Nucleo Boost. It's really important. I sat down with Dr. Alejandro Diaz at the Wellness Company yesterday to talk about measles. I'm going to play this clip, something you should know, especially if you're a parent. So here we go. Well, honored to have with us today Dr. Alejandro Diaz, who is the Chief of Pediatric Medicine at the Wellness Company. Sir, thanks for carving out some time in your busy day to join us. I appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, thank you so much for having me on.
So there has been a lot of misinformation, narrative, everything in the media over this measles outbreak. Did these children die from measles? Did they not? Was it the vaccine? What was it? I mean, what say you? Tell us what people should know about this subject.
Well, Todd, first of all, what I would like to say is so people can recognize what measles is. So measles is a highly contagious viral disease. Actually is one of the most contagious disease out there. And so it can, and what I mean by this is that one case can infect up to 18 people, 18 children or 18 patients. So it's highly communicable disease, and it's a viral disease. It's an RNA virus. It's what we call envelope RNA virus, single-stranded, and it's within the same family of what we call paramyxovirus, and it's in the same family as parainfluenza virus, which is responsible for croup. Everybody now knows what croup is. And it's also responsible for RSV, which is the cause of bronchiolitis. So these are common upper and lower respiratory infections. And measles specifically, I want to go through the signs and symptoms.
Okay.
So measles, it takes about from 7 to 14 days, the incubation period. That means when the patient is in contact with the virus, will develop between 7 and 14 days, the beginning of the symptoms. What are the signs and symptoms of measles? At the beginning, Todd, at the beginning of the disease, it's like many upper respiratory illnesses, like even the common cold. It starts with fever, cough, running nose, what we call coryza, conjunctivitis, which is redness, irritation, and watery eyes. And the fever starts to spike a little bit around the third and fifth day of the beginning of the symptoms. It's something very characteristic, or what we call in medicine pathognomonic of the disease, which is what we call Koplik spots. Koplik spots, you will find, the doctor will find the Koplik spots in the inner mucosa, inner of the mouth. Those are red, kind of red, white, and bluish spots in the inner mucosa. They're very specific for measles. And then we start with the maculopapular rash, which is very characteristic. It will start beginning in the face, spread down to the neck, trunk, back, arms, legs, and feet. And then at the beginning of the maculopapular rash, which is very characteristic, we can see an increase, a spike in fever, and it can go up to 104 and sometimes 105 Fahrenheit.
Which is high, right?
Which is exactly, which is very, very, I'm sorry, which is very, very high fever. And so those are the signs and symptoms of measles. Let me tell you, for the audience, which is very important. I am a pediatric allergist, immunologist, and global health specialist. I've been trained in different parts of the world, and I've been traveling the world, giving conferences and attending to different hospitals. I've been in practice for over 32 years, and I haven't seen a single case in my life, not even one case. Why I know? Because when you go to medical school and residency program and so on and so forth, you have to know the diseases. So I read it, but I haven't seen to this date, which is April 8th, 2025, I haven't seen a single case. What's going on right now, and as you know, Todd, we've been having outbreaks of measles for centuries.
Well, they used to have parties, right? The parents would get people together for their kids to have it. It wasn't that serious, right?
Exactly. So we've been having outbreaks for centuries. And, the license of the vaccine, the first vaccine ever of measles was just about 1963. And then it was with one shot. 26 years after that, which was roughly 1989, we had an outbreak in the United States. Just roughly about 660 kids had measles at the time. Then the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, ACIP, and the American Academy of Pediatrics got together because obviously that was an outbreak. I mean, 55,000 kids, when at the time there were roughly less than 15 million kids under the age of 15 years. So it was a huge outbreak. They decided to start with the second dose. But my question will be for everybody, and this is the question that we have to ask. What happened between those 26 years? That's one question. And then we'll continue. So we had the outbreak in Ohio in 2014, Disneyland 2015, and then Minnesota 2017, and now we have this outbreak. Let me tell you, Todd, that the mortality rate worldwide, it's 0.1% for measles. It's important to know that. So, and let me put it in perspective.
And that's very low, correct?
It is very low, 0.1% of mortality worldwide, because we're tracking virtually all over the world because I'm in global health. And just to put it in perspective, this is important for everybody to understand. We have in the United States just roughly between 6,000 and 53,000 deaths of influenza virus each year.
Yeah.
For example, the last couple of years after the what I call the COVID operation, there has been roughly between 22,000 and 28,000, depending on the year. 22,000 to 28,000 deaths, unfortunately. And Todd, as a doctor,
what is that mortality rate? Do you know percentage-wise, approximately?
Well, you have to divide it, with the population, but it's very low. It's very, very low. But as a pediatrician, as a father, and just as a human being, every single death for me is shocking. For me, it's terrible.
Of course.
As physicians, we try to keep everybody safe as much as we can. I am, very sad to know that unfortunately these beautiful children, they died. I cannot say with measles or for measles. That's a different story.
So I guess my question was, is the mortality rate higher for the flu or measles? Because you were talking about
it's definitely lower for measles.
Okay.
Much lower.
Yeah.
Definitely. So coming back again to the cases that we've been seeing. So right now the HHS has confirmed 642 cases. The vast majority of cases, roughly around 499 cases, have been in the state of Texas. But if we compare with other outbreaks before, the one that I mentioned, and many more worldwide, there's still outbreaks all the time. What is different from this outbreak than other outbreaks? The only difference that I can see from the sociological standpoint and the healthcare standpoint is that we are just coming out of a pandemic.
Sure.
We're just getting out of a pandemic, what I call the COVID operation, that shut down the world. Everything stopped. Everything changed after the COVID operation. So we have that in our minds, and now everything, it's chaos for us. So it's important to stay calm, obviously, to recognize signs and symptoms, to be aware specifically and especially for new pediatricians, new family, younger, junior family practitioners, and doctors that are on the front line of emergency rooms, so they can recognize early enough signs and symptoms of measles. And you know what the treatment has been forever? I mean, over the last many decades, Todd? Supportive care.
Yeah.
Supportive care. So if we have a patient with measles, back in the day, the hydration, vitamin A supplementation, proper, food and basically the supportive care. That's what everybody was treated with.
So do you know if these kids died from measles or from complications? I've heard pneumonia, or like Dr. Corey is out saying it wasn't measles, it was something else associated with the disease.
Todd, to be honest, I cannot say that.
Sure.
I don't have the tools. I don't have the right information. I wasn't there. I don't know. What I can tell you is that I'm terribly sorry for what happened.
Of course.
And that's in my heart.
Sure.
What I can tell you is that the most common, let's say, the most common complication of measles, it's dehydration, which is very common in many other illnesses, as you know. The number two, it's pneumonia, which is extremely well treatable if you started early on.
Right.
And then very rare cases is what we call encephalitis. So it's important for physicians, especially young physicians who hasn't been in contact with any case before, that they can recognize signs and symptoms, so they can treat early enough, and they can communicate with the parents of the kid and the community exactly what to do. Because information is power, Todd.
Of course.
Do you agree?
Oh, of course. Yeah, well, it's what, if we would have known more or been allowed to know more during the COVID, a lot of people would have been saved, I think. But it was information warfare, in my opinion.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Is what we call misinformation, malinformation, and unfortunately, a lot of mass formation.
Yes. So what is the wellness company, if somebody came to the wellness company via, say, a video chat with a membership or whatever, how would you, what would be the protocol, for a bad word, I guess, but what would be your procedure to deal with the disease if a child
well, that's a tough question, Todd. That's a tough question, to be honest. Well, let me tell you what I would do as a pediatrician, and I am not here to give any medical advice. But,
right. I'm just, I'm more interested in the process,
Yes, I'm traveling constantly all over the world. But I think just to have the right piece of information and understand exactly what is going on, that will give us a lot of information. That will give us a lot of peace of mind. And because information at the end is power, that it will give you the power to take the right decisions. And one of the things that I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt is that way back before 1963, when the first measles vaccine was licensed, the mortality rate, just by itself, just by nature of the betterment and the improvement in healthcare, it was dropping.
Right.
It was dropping. So I don't think we have to go into panic mode. What we have to be in is what I call aware mode. Not too preoccupied, but occupied. What we will do. And it's important to talk to our colleagues, talk to our patients that, we have seen this before for centuries.
Yes.
I really think that is very important to mention and to communicate that message.
Interesting. So I guess parents should just monitor and take them to the doc. When should they take a child, do you think, to the physician or contact the wellness company through their video links or whatever?
That's a great question, Todd. That's a great question. You know, especially right now, we are at the end of spring, and this is when we have high cases of upper respiratory infections, lower respiratory infections, and then we will transition to GI infections and so on. When you start to see specifically your child that it's less than 5 years old and starts with these signs and symptoms, I'm going to repeat it again. High fever, cough, running nose, coryza, and conjunctivitis, which is redness and watery of the eyes. And then it's hard for a parent to see the coupling spots, but a doctor will be easy to recognize. Just go to the ER, talk to your primary care physician, to your pediatrician, and they will know what to do. So I think it's very important to stay in touch with your primary care physician, and they will know exactly what to do. But it's important to stay in touch with them. It's to have that kind of support. But also very important, it's to have this information.
Sure. Anything else you want to get out to the public, Doc, before we close up? Anything else on measles?
Well, basically, just to share with everybody that measles, it's a viral, highly communicable disease. It's very infectious, very transmissible. But fortunately, and thank God, it's not that. The mortality rate is very low.
Yes.
0.1%. If we and everybody take the right measures and do what we have to do, like call to your doctor immediately when you start to recognize those signs and symptoms that I mentioned, we will be in good hands with the right doctor and the right healthcare provider.
Excellent, Doc. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're very busy, so thank you. We'll have you back. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Stav. You have a great day.
Hope you enjoyed that with Dr. Diaz. We want to continue to have the wellness company docs on because they're very knowledgeable and really bring a lot of good stuff to the audience. I want to just give a shout out to Advisor Metals real quick. We have a relationship with them, and a lot of people right now don't know what to do in the markets. Markets are very volatile. We've been warning there's going to be a sell-off for some time. It's not too late to look at precious metals to try and fortify your portfolio, put assets in another store of value that has for 5,000 years held its value when the fiat assets may not in the near future, especially. So go to cdmmetals.com, and check out Advisor Metals. You can fill out the form there, and their team will contact you. I promise you it won't be a hard sales pitch. I can give you that promise. We've had a lot of good feedback. We've checked their regulatory issues. We've checked their bankers. We've checked their IRA custodians, and fantastic remarks and reviews. So Advisor Metals at cdmmetals.com, and protect your portfolio because it's really important. I hope you enjoyed the SCIF we did today. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, and Monday through Friday. Thanks. See you next time.